Welcome to the MW Mysteries podcast, where I will discuss creepypastas and their hidden meanings. To start with, I will be breaking down some of the creepypastas I've narrated already, like MB's South-Ferry. Judging from all of your responses below, I will decide whether or not to continue creating these very special podcasts for you guys on my YouTube channel and SoundCloud page. If you'd like to listen to my narration of the aforementioned creepypasta South-Ferry, be sure to check out the description for the link. Without further ado, let's begin.
Even from the far end of the platform, seeing the whole of the lower station at 190th Street, Harold noticed only one other person waiting for the train. Granted, it was quite late, around 2:30 a.m. On what day was it? A weekend, but still it seemed unusually quiet. Harold could hear a single drip, ticking the seconds away. Not quite seconds, Harold noticed. A little slower. He studied his watch, listening to the drops plop into the still, murky puddle on the tracks.
Hello there again. So what you just heard was the first couple of seconds of the original YouTube video I uploaded about a month ago now. My own narration of MB's South-Ferry from creepypasta.com. So what I'm going to do here is just occasionally cut in and out of the original video I posted and sort of give my thoughts on the present situation. At this stage in the story, there hasn't been much update. We do know that Harold is waiting on the platform for a train. That much is very clear. And he's also forgetful. He forgot what day it was. He's... At this stage in the story, I believe it's evident that he's slowly losing his grip. Let's continue.
Yes, the drip was slightly behind the ticking of the thin red hand of his watch, but only just barely. The puddle, obviously filthy, was large, filling up nearly the entire width of the train tracks and almost spreading to the third rail. Harold vaguely wondered what would happen if it did, and if a rat decided to take a shortcut through. What would be the eggplant-sized rodent? A pond? Really, almost a swamp? Would it be electrocuted?
So I apologize for not saying this before, but I guess we're still safe at this point in the story. If you haven't seen the original video or read South-Ferry on creepypasta.com yet, you probably should before listening to the rest of this break here, because I will be spoiling a bit of information regarding the ending of this really, really creepy story. So you've been warned. Now, with that said, Harold begins talking about rats, right? He goes into a lot of detail, so just to spare you guys a reflection of the video you've more than likely already heard, I'm going to skip past the all the details regarding the rats across the station. But I do want to spend some time on the symbolism of the rat. What do you associate with a rat? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is filth. It's dirty, right? Or disease-ridden, or, they'll eat just about anything, right? And their hair is probably covered in, well, anything, really. It could be fecal matter. It could be vomit. It could be other excrements, urine, its own urine, its partner's urine. It could be all kinds of stuff. And well, towards the end of the story, it becomes more and more clear that Harold is entering a different reality. And, well, I think it's fair to assume that this rat may be his greeter, or his doorman, if you will, to this different and disgusting reality. So let's continue. Sometimes while he searched for the critters below, he'd see something move out of the corner of his eye. A shadow on the platform next to where he was standing. Of course, it would be a rat, usually the biggest, grossest, and most bloated of rats. The godfathers, Harold called them.
Harold remembered once catching the glance of a young woman standing near him as a rat the size of a deformed kitten with a gigantism wobbled across the platform. It wobbled as though stuffed from a horrifying Thanksgiving dinner. The young woman had paled, sickened, and gave a soft cry, backing away from the strange creature. Harold could feel the hair on his neck rising as his eyes locked with the poor young woman's. What sleepy, dull, hideous obscenity was this? Harold and the woman both remained frozen as the little nightmare crawled away.
So like I said earlier, if you haven't finished this story yourself, please stop listening for your own sake, for being entertained, because I will be ruining a lot of it. Of course, there's always the off chance I'm totally off with my theories here. I haven't confirmed these with the writer himself or herself. So this could totally be just speculation. But on the off chance it is right, I don't want to spoil it for you guys. So again, with that said, just to make it really, really clear here, guys, he sees a shadow. Now, shadows, what do you think? Mystery. There's something clearly hidden here within the cover of darkness. Now, honestly, how often have you in your life dismissed something purely based on the fact that you cannot comprehend it? Harold admits that he witnessed this shadow, this shimmery dark figure in his peripheral, and he changes the subject immediately. He starts talking about a situation involving another patron of the train station and a rat. So I think it's a reflection of his inner fear of the subject. More on the woman herself. Now, what does she have to do with any of this? Well, my first thing that comes to mind, knowing how the story ends, is she was a victim. Later on in the story, we will encounter what the shadow is. And I believe when Harold was witnessing the situation, when she was just scared out of her damn mind, she didn't see a rat like Harold did. She was actually observing the shadow in its full form. And once we learn exactly what that looks like later on in the story, I'm sure you'll be able to sympathize with this poor woman at the train station. So with that, back to South-Ferry. He knew they were the only people that had seen the rat, as passengers elsewhere continued to chat with one another, listen to their music, or check their phones, oblivious to the filthy, dull-eyed vermin only feet away from them. Harold remembered shuddering. How often had he himself stood on the platform waiting for the train, oblivious to the horrible, slinky, wet creatures scuttering around him? But tonight all the rats seemed to have vacated the station. Harold found himself, as always, relieved and somewhat disappointed at the same time. So I mentioned earlier that I believe the rat is sort of the representation of Harold's personal doorman to his death. Hell, even. Harold just mentioned that the people surrounding himself and the other woman during the whole rat fiasco didn't even pick up on anything that was going on. So we know at that point that whatever is happening to them, those two people, is highly unique. Nobody else is witnessing these abnormally large rodents, which leads me to believe that in Harold's case, he's getting closer and closer to the edge of his death. He's seeing these rats all the time, these greeters to hell, just wandering all over the place, being disgusting and just covered in fecal matter. And then suddenly, the station is empty. It's almost as if things are a little too quiet. In other words, you're about to get ambushed. Now back to the story. Despite the repulsion he felt at the sight of them,
The rats held a certain fascination for him. These were the carriers of fleas that spread the Black Death during the Middle Ages. These were the companions or fellow tenants of the cockroaches. They were everywhere and anywhere, and could sneak up behind you or right in front of you at any time, regardless of your social class, your education, your attractiveness, or lack thereof. Rats, Harold thought, like death, were a great equalizer.
Need I say more? Oh, man. It would be quite embarrassing if all my theories were absolutely incorrect. But I think what you just heard is actually plenty to back my whole theory about the rats being the doormen to hell. So at this point in the podcast, I'm going to fast forward through the original video about 3 or 4 minutes to the part where we encounter the shadow once again. And this part is certainly where it gets even more exciting. So stay tuned. Glancing up from his watch, from which he'd been mildly hypnotized, Harold noticed the lone fellow commuter waiting down on the platform. The one from earlier had moved closer to where Harold stood. His stomach fluttered a little, disconcerted. Although the person, even with their back turned to him, now appeared to be an elderly woman. He did wonder what the old lady was doing out at such an hour in this neighborhood, or where she would be going. Where anyone would be going at this hour on a weeknight. Was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Well, regardless, it was beyond him. Maybe she was headed to visit a dying friend in the hospital. Maybe she was late night shopping for cat food and sure, maybe she was going to get laid. Shadows. Again, it's become even more clear to Harold, our eyes in the story, our eyes on the platform, what exactly this shadow is, and it's an elderly woman. Now, the general consensus, I think it's reasonable to say that elderly people are docile. They don't mean any harm, right? Harold sees this shadow for what it really is. And not only does he feel suddenly more comfortable, he proceeds to make fun of the shadow. Maybe she's going to get laid. Maybe she's going out grocery shopping. Just making jokes, trying to get more comfortable with the situation. If only he knew what was really coming for him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw her begin to sway back and forth. He worried for a minute she was going to faint, maybe fall on the tracks, but he thought to himself, please fall onto the tracks. Please don't turn around and look at me. Please don't come any closer. But the swaying was steady, like the dripping had been, and she appeared in no danger of tumbling onto the tracks. Her swaying, in fact, the side to side of it, was synced up with Harold's heartbeat. Did she know he was scared? The old woman's laugh got louder and louder, although it wasn't exactly sounding like a laugh anymore. As the train began to brake, he heard the piercing squeal of the wheels on the metal track. Screaming, the old woman was now screaming. Please don't turn around, please. The train stopped. All was silent, including the old woman. The train doors opened softly with a gentle sound. And that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to end it right there and just explain it to you in the most... I'm totally kidding. I'm not going to do that to you guys. I'm going to play the last little pinch just after this. I want to do one quick wrap up. So with this whole story just about over, South-Ferry by MB. Overall, I really enjoyed it. It was my very first creepypasta narration and video uploaded to YouTube ever, so it has some meaning to me, and more than just the way it's written, but just more on the story as a whole. I really do stand by that. My theory that this really is Harold getting closer and closer to his demise. He unfortunately is boarding the train to hell. And his greeter was the elderly woman that took the form of a rat at some point and was a couple other things, right? And then she unleashed that terrible scream and all of that craziness. And then when he gets on the train, everything is silent. It's almost as if he accepted his fate. I think that's a great place to wrap up right there. Like I said, I'm going to play the last little pinch for you guys of the original South-Ferry video. Remember, if you'd like to listen to the entire video uninterrupted, please go ahead and check out the description. I will post a link there for you. If not, you can go directly to my YouTube page and find it there, South-Ferry. So if you enjoyed the first edition of the MW Mysteries official podcast, please let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback on any of my videos. I'd love to hear whatever any of you would have to say about my work. It only makes me better equipped to create better material for you guys. So let me know, please, any comments whatsoever. And now, without further ado, back to South-Ferry.
There was no one else inside. Harold suddenly was sure of something else. No one was driving the train either. And this train was not going to South-Ferry. He stepped into the car. The old woman stayed on the platform. Her back was still facing him. He knew she wasn't joining him on the train. She was merely there to greet him. As the doors of the train car closed, as the train began its journey downtown, Harold saw her out of the corner of his eye one last time, like the demonic little rodent on the platform that had caused the young woman such terror, with their eyes had locked in dreaded understanding. He saw the young woman's sheet white face again in his mind, and now knew why she had been so terrified. Because she knew, and that rat knew, because it had come from there. And the old lady knew because she'd been sent from there as well. They knew where the train was really going, and now Harold knew too. Where they were all eventually going.